Today, in this under 5-minute video, I'm going to explain to you something that I've run across so many times with my students. When they first start out and they get an instrument, it hurts their fingers when they press the strings down. And I'm going to give you the #1 reason for that and try to explain it. And bear in mind that this video is not meant to teach you how to correct it. It's to teach you to know that it needs correcting. You might be better, if you're a beginner, to take it to somebody who has done it many times. And what we're talking about here is the nut. And this video applies to banjos, mandolins, guitars, fiddles, any stringed instrument that has a nut. And here's what I've learned. 95% of the time, an instrument off the shelf is going to have the nut too high. The nut is this little white piece of bone. Here's one out of the mandolin. And this could be a guitar, banjo, whatever. The nut does a couple things. It sets the height of the strings on this end of the neck, not down here, above the frets. So the higher the nut, the higher the strings, therefore the harder to press down the strings. And to illustrate some of this, I'm going to pull out a dobro. Actually, I should call it a resophonic guitar, because dobro is a copyright or registered trademark of, I think, Gibson. I don't know. Dobro has been owned by so many people. But a dobro will illustrate this very well. So let me pull out the dobro and show you. Okay, we're looking here at a resophonic guitar, or what is sort of generically called a dobro. The reason I chose this to illustrate this point is that on a dobro, the nut is extremely high. It's high enough I can get my little finger under the strings. These strings are at least 3/8 of an inch above the fingerboard. And you can imagine that if you were trying to play this instrument and pull that string down all the way to the fret, you're going to have a really hard time doing it. Steel stretches and has some give to it, but it doesn't have that much. And the farther you move that string, the harder it gets. And you probably actually cut your finger off if you pressed on it hard enough. Well, that's the principle going on a much smaller scale with guitars, banjos, mandolins. The distance from the string to the fret is a lot smaller. But a little bit means a lot. If your nut slots are too tall, bringing the strings too far away from the fret, it's going to be harder to play. Understand that for your hand strength and the type of strings you have and the style that you play, there's going to be an ideal. And you want that string as close to the fret as you can get it without it rattling or buzzing. And most people don't have a way to measure this, so one way you can do it is to use a pick. You know, there are thin, medium, and heavy picks. Take yourself a thin pick and slide it under the string right on top of the fret and see if you feel any pressure. Does it slip in there really easy like it would up here because it's higher, or is it kind of tight? Do you have to force it under there? A good thickness measuring tool is a standard 3x5 index card. I've measured it with a micrometer, and I used to be a printer, and it's 7.5 thousandths of an inch thick. That's sort of the standard for index card material. Take it and slide it between the strings and the first fret, sort of like so. You should feel a little bit of resistance, which means the strings are slightly lower. If it just slides right through there with no effort, then your strings may be on the high side. The principle of correcting the action, or the string height, at the nut is very simple. Make the slots deeper if you want to take the string closer to the fret. Doing it is an art form and requires tools and experience. In particular, it requires really small, tiny files that are sized to match the string diameter, and then the string is removed from the slot I'm not actually going to file on mine because I think it's perfect. But the string is taken out of the slot, the file is put in the slot, tilted at the angle of the peg head, and a few strokes made. Okay, I admit the video went a little bit over 5 minutes, but I'm going to try to stick to my goal of keeping these 5 minutes or less in the future. But I want to tell you this, that I have a free video lesson on how to set up your action, and it discusses both ends, truss rods, all that kind of stuff, which I'll provide a link to in the notes, in the description under the YouTube video. I also have a book called the Mandolin Handbook, which in particular for mandolin players discusses all this in even greater detail than the video does, and a lot of other things about mandolins in general. It's sort of the owner's manual to the mandolin, which they never gave you. You know how people get a car and they've got that 200-page owner's manual which they never read? Well, with mandolins and guitars and stuff, they don't even give you one. So I wrote one. So you can check that out. There's a link in the description. Anyway, hope you had fun, and sorry I ran a little bit over the 5 minutes.